see Russia investing in and continuing to invest in capabilities that are of concern to us. We have one of the largest places of nuclear weapons right across the border from Norway in the north on the Kola Peninsula. So we certainly have to work together as allies and invest in our own defence.
So Keir Starmer and other NATO leaders are preparing for this Blink and You'll Miss It summit starting in Ankara in Turkey today. The subtext suggested by some is that the aim is to get in and out as fast as possible so as to avoid a dust-up with Donald Trump. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about his relationship with Europe, particularly Western Europe, over defence. But I want to take a moment to focus on the hosts, Turkey, and his relationship with President Erdogan. Turkey correspondent Andrew Finkel joins us now. He's been based in Istanbul for some decades now. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Turkey and Erdogan have been quite awkward members of the club in the past. Are they still seen that way?
Well, increasingly less in the case of Turkey. And Turkey has become a sort of rival Trump whisperer. Donald Trump said the only reason he's even going to Ankara is because it is being held in Turkey, and he has respect for Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish strongman president, whose, I think, authoritarian powers Donald Trump is slightly envious of.
Yeah, it's interesting that Donald Trump does seem to like going toe-to-toe with, or perhaps side-by-side with, these more strongman leaders. And Erdogan sort of fits that mould, whilst nominally a democratic leader.
Well, that's very much the case. And of course, as far as Turkey is concerned, this is really very much a performance, an event, a pageant, which it would put it in center stage. So it's very much in Mr. Erdogan's advantage to be seen to be hosting world leaders in Ankara and to earn this respect of the world in face of an electorate which is increasingly disillusioned with, Turkey's rate of inflation has come down to 30%, if you can imagine that. So people are suffering economically. So this is very much a defense circus to distract Turkish public opinion.
Donald Trump's frustration with Europe has been the lack of defence spending. I was looking into the figures, though, the NATO figures, which suggest that Turkey spent 2.33% of its GDP on defence in 2025. That's just below the UK on 2.4%. Yet that doesn't seem to draw quite the same ire from Washington.
Well, yes, I mean, Turkey has committed to increasing spending by, in 2035, to 5%. But as you say, according to how you measure defense spending, it might even be slightly below that 2.35%. On the other hand, Turkey is building up a huge defense industry, which is increasingly valuable to Europe. So Turkey's whole relationship to NATO is changing. At first, originally Turkey was one of the first members of NATO in 1952. Its relationship has very much been based on its geography. It has a southern, it has borders with Iran, Iraq, Syria. It has a vital exit from the Black Sea, Mediterranean power. So it was very much its strategy. But now it's become a defense industry giant, and that was on display yesterday when they had all these defense fairs in Ankara. So Turkey now manufactures drones in relationship with Ukraine. It has partnerships with Italy and Spain. It's building up its aircraft capabilities. It's also very much a military strategic power, and it has what people call a framework nation. It can actually coordinate the other NATO partners into actions, which it has done in places like Afghanistan, etc. So its whole relationship to NATO is changing from being a slightly reluctant partner to being one of the stalwarts.
And has the war in Iran, changed its role? Obviously, NATO wasn't really that directly involved in what was mainly a US and Israeli campaign, but that must give Turkey a new leverage or importance.
Well, of course, this is yes. I mean, it obviously has a large border with Iran. This has been a largely peaceful border. Iran did fire a couple missiles in Turkey's direction at the very start of the conflict, which were easily shot down. But that really, I think, shocked Turkey because it sort of regarded itself almost as a neutral player in this conflict, and to suddenly find itself being forced to take sides was something of a blow to its own self-image. But of course, it really depends on what happens in Iran next. If Iran is weakened, if it decides to go along with some of the conditions what the United States is imposing upon it, this is very much to Turkey's advantage. You know, if its neighbors' powers goes down, its power goes up. But if Iran manages to remain a vital player, a strategic player, this of course means that Turkey has to be on its guard and weakens it.
And other than the prestige, I suppose, of hosting all these leaders in Ankara, what do you think what does Erdogan want from this summit?
Well, he's certainly got a lot of traffic jams in Ankara at the moment. I think a lot of people are complaining about that it's impossible to get anywhere within the city. But what he wants more concretely is I think an expression of his importance in the world, his ability to bargain with Trump, but he's also trying to get the United States to lift some embargoes on F-35s. This has been a long-standing sore with Turkey because Turkey bought defensive missiles from Russia, the S-400s, that disqualified it from being able to purchase sophisticated equipment from the United States, and it very much wants to solve that issue. Although Turkey is a great defense manufacturer, it relies on Western nations for some of the more sophisticated technology and engine parts. So therefore, it wants to be brought back into the norm. And of course, it's also, as Trump is an ambivalent supporter of Europe's defense, Turkey's role in the defense of Europe also increases. So Turkey sees this really very much as a win-win summit.
Well, lest we forget Turkey's closeness to Ukraine geographically as well, compared to a lot of NATO members. Andrew, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Pleasure.
Andrew Finkel is a journalist who's been based in Istanbul since 1989.
The NATO summit kicks off today. It's a tricky time. There are concerns about President Trump's continued criticism of his allies, and Russia is testing NATO's resolve. Only yesterday, RAF jets had to confront Russian planes over the Norwegian Sea. Nordic countries, including Norway, are a particular target of Russian interference. We can speak this morning, I'm delighted to say, to Ambassador Anita Nergaard, who's representing Norway at NATO. Anita, good morning to you.
Good morning from Ankara.
Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into what's going to happen today and tomorrow at this meeting, just generally, how worried is Norway specifically about a Russian threat? The argument is that Russia has not been able to do very much in terms of successfully completing its illegal war on Ukraine. Are you concerned that the Russian threat could still expand, though?
So we are certainly concerned about the long-term threat from Russia. We have seen Russia struggle increasingly now in Ukraine, which is a good thing. We support Ukraine and we want Russia to pull out of Ukraine. But the long-term threat from Russia will persist regardless of the outcome of the war in Ukraine. And we see Russia investing in and continuing to invest in capabilities that are of concern to us. We have one of the largest places of nuclear weapons right across the border from Norway in the north on the Kola Peninsula. So we certainly have to work together as allies and invest in our own defense.
And I've been looking at your defence spending. Your commitment to reach 3.5% of GDP spending by 2035 seems very firm and a solid commitment. Do you believe that the UK has a similarly solid commitment to getting to 3.5% of GDP spending on defence?
Well, we welcome the defence investment plan just presented by the UK. We see many positive developments in it, and as we work very closely with the UK, especially in the north, we think it's very positive to see the willingness to invest, not least in maritime security, underwater security, and other areas where we work closely with the UK.
But are you aware that the defence establishment in this country, for example, thinks that defence investment plan is underfunded? They said it needed £28 billion to be properly funded, and the government was only willing to provide £15 billion.
So look, we're into the first year after the Hague commitment of reaching 3.5% by 2035. Of course, many allies in NATO will feel that we should really push that timeline, or bring it forward rather, and step up more quickly. And we see many allies doing that.
But not the UK.
On our side, we also do this gradually. So I think it's important that all allies now get on board and continue to ramp up defense spending and invest wisely as well, and ramp up defense industry. And exactly the profile each country chooses will have to be their own choice based on different circumstances.
Anita, I'm sure I'm not telling you something you don't know, but nobody in this country believes that Britain is going to get to 3.5% by 2035. Nobody believes it. Nobody thinks there's certainly not a plan. There's certainly not a pathway to getting to 3.5%, which would be something like £25 billion a year extra spending, for which there's no funding whatsoever. I just wonder how much of you guys are just pretending collectively that there's going to be this pathway to 3.5% when the reality is different.
Well, I do believe that we base ourselves on the commitments made, and the commitment made in The Hague was very clear. It was a commitment of 5% in total, 3.5% on core defense and 1.5% on security and defense-related issues. And this is what all countries will need to deliver on over the next 10 years.
So you have faith that the UK will do that?
I have faith that all allies will important decisions made by many countries, some quicker and some more gradually, but even incremental increase from the bigger European countries like the UK will be important and is welcomed by us.
Before you go, I should mention Norway are playing England in Miami this Saturday in the World Cup quarterfinals. Are you confident? Will you be doing the Viking row in support? How do you feel about the game?
Well, I'm certainly confident we'll do the Viking row, and then we'll see how it all goes. It will be a fair play, I'm sure, and may the best team win.
Kate loves Erling Haaland. Do you like Erling Haaland, Anita?
Thank you.
That is Ambassador Anita Nergaard representing Norway at NATO.